very closely linked to this, and let me bring in now Mr. Aman Agarwal, Director Professor, Indian Institute of Finance. I think, it's important to also look at the poverty numbers and the low income levels which the economic survey is talking about. And if I can just read this to you. The World Bank revised the international poverty line from 2.15 US dollars to $3 per day. This was back in 2021. Now, based on the revised poverty line, India's poverty rates in FY 22-23 are estimated to be 5.3% and 23.9% for lower middle income poverty. Now, a quarter of the population continues to be in the lower middle income poverty when we are talking about the baseline of just $3 per day. Mr. Agarwal, is this not worrisome for India, especially as we harbor Viksit Bharat ambitions?
You see, from an international standpoint, yes, these numbers seem to be of worrisome. However, the Niti Aayog also has calibrated some of these numbers, looking at the way states have been performing on different aspects, looking at a more wider substance than what the World Bank or some of the other agencies look at in terms of the poverty numbers. So from that perspective, if you did look at, we are improving. It is a question of concern, and I think that's where the employment numbers are important, and the factor that the government is actually wanting skill development to come up so that the unskilled laborers can actually factor in more in terms of the productive growth as well as for themselves and for the economy as well. Now, as I said before, these numbers keep changing. The definitions also keep changing with $3, $2.4, and earlier around $1 or so. So it keeps changing. We cannot really go on with that because this is looking at the global surface. The purchasing power in India is still very strong. And if you really look at the purchasing power structure, we are the third largest economy in the world based on the purchasing power itself. But when we look at a normative structure, we move down to the fifth level. Now, that's where per capita income also plays a critical role. And there we have not seen much of a rise, primarily because of the rupee devaluation, which has happened substantially. If the rupee devaluation is not taken into account, then we will not see so much of a poverty index category or the large population coming under the poverty index factor. But
on the contrary, if I can have Dr. Rajan Sudesh Ratna weigh in on this, on the contrary, the devaluation of the rupee actually would ensure that there is higher income, and hence, at 80 rupees, $3 would be 240 rupees, and at 90 rupees, it becomes 270 rupees. So 270 rupees a day, if there are more people making that much money, it's that much better for the economy, isn't it? But the fundamental point, Dr. Rajan Sudesh Ratna, still being that even with the rupee devalued, 91 rupees as we speak right now, 273 rupees a day is not what 25% of India is making. Is that something which is truly worth considering and worth fretting over?
Actually, see, being a large population, it brings to your advantage and it also brings to your disadvantage. And this is what coming to India too. As Professor Agarwal also said, we stayed, our office is looking to Southwest Asia. Look at the context of South Asia. We host around 1/4 of the world population, but half of the poor of the world. So it's not only India, this entire South Asia. India, of course, has a larger population. Now, when we talk about in terms of dollar, make it $80, $90, $100, basically the devaluation of the rupee, who gains? Well, exporters would gain. Importer will incur loss because they will have to pay more. Local people, it would not be beneficial to them because the wage rates in India are not linked or pegged with the dollar.
Okay.
Right? So you get it in Indian rupees. And if the Indian rupee is getting devalued, which will also impact on inflation. So the purchasing power of the same person who was getting at 80 rupees a dollar, and now his purchasing power at 90 or 92 rupees a dollar, his purchasing power declines. And so if you keep, of course, these are being changed, but the problem in India also is a big informal sector in which the people are employed. And when we talked about earlier, the construction, Look at construction. How many of formal employment people are there in the construction? Look at the daily wages. Look at the migration which has happened from the rural area to urban area for feeding or catering to these construction.
Yeah.
All this, if you look at it, and earlier we were talking about employability and other things. Interestingly, I mean, I will just digress a little bit, which I wanted to share. If you see, there was one table I was crossing through, and industrial growth, CAGR from financial year 2021 to 2024. The table says the highest CAGR has been found in glass and glassware, which was 22.46%. And then is the beverages and tobacco, which is 20.48%.
Okay.
But if you look at the sectors like textile, leather, where we know, or mining, where we know huge employment exists, their CAGR is only 7.7% in textile. Leather is 5.44 and mining is 7.
Could it also be the base effect? Could it also be that perhaps, glassware does not have as much, output and as much capacity as potentially leather, textile, etc. And hence the clip that you see in CAGR is actually playing on the base effect?
I mean, but I'm not talking about a manufacturing growth of 8.2% or plus 7%.
Right.
Any sector which is growing beyond 7% is good for India. I mean, if you look in the global context, not many countries, including China, would be able to have an aim of 7%. 7% growth India could achieve. It's really, really remarkable because the global uncertainty, and economic survey talked about the US, the conflict, including India also had operations into, which put a lot of money, the development money, which had gone into the defense, and I saw the defense sector expenditure increasing.
Right.
So then, if you are talking about a growth, private sector-led growth or in manufacturing, that is a positive and it need to be recognized. But I think what earlier speakers talked about, something in certain sectors which are more labor-intensive, certain sectors where we know there is an informal workforce which is working, there, if the budget or the government policy can bring certain interventions for their social security, bringing their collecting the data and bringing perhaps we might find that this averages may also go up because we know where we stand.
Got it. Cool. I think point well taken. I want to now, before we run out of time, address two more issues. One, of course, is the tax collection and the other is inflation. Let's begin first with tax collection. Dilip Chinoy, if I can request you to come back and just help us understand, because we saw the last financial year, or rather the present financial year, we saw massive tax corrections and changes and reforms right from direct income tax, personal income tax to the GST 2.0. It seems that while there has been a great consumption fillip, there has also been greater tax buoyancy, and something which people are assuming, if you exempt income up to 12.75 lakh rupees, where is the direct income tax going to flow in from? But the final estimates which are coming in by way of the economic survey are now suggesting that personal income tax is actually likely to have gone up from 11.99 lakh crore rupees to 13.57 lakh crore rupees. We are seeing a massive jump in the revised estimate of FY25 and the estimate, for FY26. So it seems that just on the component of personal income tax, we are looking at an increase from less than 12 lakh crores to more than 13.5 lakh crores for the government coffers.
It's a very interesting question. And it's very relevant in the context of what's happening. So three things happened over the last year and have been happening over the past few years. The first, of course, is the rationalization of tax rates. The second one was the simplification of tax filing. And third is this whole faceless assessments, etc. What it has done, it has actually increased the confidence of a large number of Indians in the ability to pay tax. So the survey actually says that the higher taxes are coming from more number of taxpayers and not necessarily higher tax rates. So I think that's a very interesting lesson if you make the things simple. And also the finance minister earlier stated that more and more people are opting for the new simplified tax regime, which is the one where you get a lower rate without any exemptions. than the previous tax kind of, where you could claim deductions and you're at a different rate.
Right.
So I think one very clearly, and next year you might actually see something more coming up because the new rates kick in, etc. But it is really because of the ease of compliance, the removal of fear that if you are going to, it's going to open up everything, and this whole simplification and trust building in the taxation system. It's
Right.
also happened in the GST system, right? So, the new benchmark is like 1.6 lakh crores for GST monthly collections. And input matching credit has also improved, that it says. And very importantly, the survey says that the GST buoyancy is now structural and not necessarily cyclical. So I think the whole tax system and the reforms that have been done and the confidence that people are having and the cost of compliance reducing
Yeah.
are great factors in enabling this to happen.